So good evening. Thank you all very much for coming this evening. Not a small topic to cover, right? Everything you wanted to know about meditation. So the plan for this evening is for us to have a short meditation that you will do the way you normally do. I want you to have a in the moment, direct experiential feel for what it is to meditate and what problems arise for you when you meditate. Following this, I plan to talk about what seems to be the commonest problems we encounter when we meditate and ways of overcoming that. I then plan to do a guided meditation and trying to emphasize some of the important points that I feel will hopefully make your practice easier. We will then have time for all your questions about meditation. So before we start, is there anybody here who has not meditated before? Great. So one person. So we're going to start the meditation. I will give a broad instruction in order for you to be able to sit through the next hour of the meditation. No. You'll be fine, don't worry. And so we'll start that meditation now, and I will ring the bell to start, and I will ring the bell to end. So I would invite everybody to simply feel grounded into your body in the chair. If you could sit upright, your spine lifted to the air, eyes are closed, and we are going to bring awareness to the physical sensations of the movement of the breath at the tip of the nostrils. This is all we're trying to do, is to feel the physical sensations. And to allow yourself to be spontaneously breathed by your breath without any attempt to control what is going on. And inevitably, your mind will be distracted. You will lose your awareness of the breath. And at that point in time, can you try and bring your awareness back to the breath? And so I will leave you to meditate until you hear the bell again. So, just to get a sense, we know that one person has come here new to meditation. Just to get a feel, how many people here roughly meditate at least once a week? Put your hands up. Keep them up. Twice a week? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a good smattering of people, and some do meditate every day a week. So the question I ask for you here is, what do you mean by meditate? What do you think it means? What are you doing?
So I notice what's happening in my body. That's mostly what I do. Try to notice, sensations in my body that, running around getting stuff done, I would probably not notice.
So your practice is one of noticing the sensations in your body. Thank you. Anybody else? What does it mean to meditate?
When I do the meditation, I feel a calmness come over me, because I try to focus on the breath,
Right?
and it just slows things down, so I feel more relaxed.
Okay. So you have a breath-focused meditation and you feel a calming effect.
For me personally, it's not all the time that this happens, but if I get into a deeper meditative state, my body's asleep and my mind is still awake. But that's not something that I can just command. It's out of 6, 7 times a week, that might happen twice or 3 times.
Great, thank you. But I want to get back to the question. What does it mean to meditate? Is it just that you're doing it to achieve a calm state? Is that the purpose for what we're doing here?
To keep, to not let the mind wander around, just keep focus on the
Okay.
moment.
So to calm that mind, that agitation that we all experience.
I was going to say the same thing. For me, it's to try and calm the thoughts of the mind.
Okay.
To become still
Yeah.
in thoughts.
And just to get a sense, how many people meditate using the breath as the focus? Hands up. Okay. How many people meditate with the body? Sounds, images, and how many people meditate as what we call an open awareness, whatever arises in the moment?
Because I do all the above.
Okay, that you can have more than one way. So, meditation has been around for over 4,000 years. From a Buddhist perspective, it comes from the Pali word bhavana, because it was an agrarian society. What does bhavana mean? To cultivate. Cultivate what? Awareness. Awareness of what? The present moment. What do you choose in the present moment? Whatever you choose. So it is a formal, dedicated practice to enhance focal awareness and attention. So that's how we are starting out with it. You've probably heard of many types of meditation. Is it transcendental? Is it Zen? Is it metta? Is it vipassana? Is it breath? Boy, lots of choices. But the critical aspect is that when you look at meditation, there are 2 main types of meditation. One is called concentration, and one is called insight. When we look at concentration meditation, there are 2 ways in which we approach it. One is called focused awareness, which means we choose one object to bring our attention to, which could be breath, body, sound, sights, whatever. Even though we choose one object, you have to recognize that nothing stays the same. So you may have chosen one object, but it is constantly changing. No breath will be the same as the next breath. The other way we do concentration meditation is through a process called open monitoring, where one is resting in awareness and attention is directed to whatever comes into your awareness in that moment. And that's not something you are intentionally choosing as a rule. It's just what appears. And in this situation, you're bringing awareness not to one object that is constantly changing, but to constantly changing objects. The other way of practicing is called vipassana, insight. Insight into the true nature of reality, insight into the true nature of self. There are what is called the 3 marks of existence, where we can see that in any moment, nothing is permanent. Everything is changing, everything will end. That to grab onto something that you perceive as permanent will cause you suffering. And interestingly, there is no innate, inherent essence to anything. That everything is dependent upon something else to come into existence in that moment. And in particular, that sense of self that we think is so real and solid and enduring, that if you truly observe through vipassana, you will see that the sense of self is created moment to moment. It is a temporary, ephemeral, conditioned construct. And the self that exists in this moment may be similar, but is different than what just was, and may be similar, but is different than what will be. So, focused awareness, concentration or insight meditation, and this is what we start with. So, why do you meditate? And I seem to have gotten a response already from you in the sense that I feel calm, it quiets my mind. Anything else that anybody wants to share in terms of why do you meditate? What are the benefits or lack of benefits that you have witnessed in your meditation? Anything else to offer about that question?
I want some relief from the suffering.
Suffering from a psychological or physical or both? Okay, so thank you. We meditate in order to relieve our psychological, emotional suffering. Very common way to start, and often what we like to achieve. Thank you. Anything else? That's a key one.
I meditate to be able to fall asleep.
To fall asleep. Very good. Thank you very much. Anything else?
I sometimes get a blissful state, and so I'm always wanting to go to that different blissful state.
And what do you, so the answer was, there's a blissful state that is obtained. What do you mean by blissful?
Overcome with joy, bursting heart, and happiness.
Great.
I want that.
She will be offering classes later. So bliss, joy, happiness. So Ali is a long-term meditator. And Ali, I want you to share, if you might share, please, Why do you meditate, and what benefits have you seen in your practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like, I've been meditating all in for probably 25 years or so, and at different stages of my practice, there's, I think, just different benefits that continue to accrue. I guess the first stint of meditation that I did, I started in my teen years and through my studies, and it was really just a concentration meditation. It was to focus. So I was focused on the breath, focused on very specific visual objects, and it was super helpful in just plain old studying, right? Being able to just sit down and focus on something for an hour with no interruptions and be able to really take in what was happening in that in that moment. So I think that's a really simple, straightforward benefit of it. Yeah.
Thank you. So it helped with focusing, concentration, studying, stability. So when we look at meditation, the benefits derive from the two characteristics, concentration and insight. And so when we meditate, we have improved focus, improved attention, improved stability, improved calmness, improved regulation. And from the insight perspective, again, there's less selfing, less identification with the sense of self, which also leads to less suffering. So what's been demonstrated in terms of the psychological benefits of meditation is that it does decrease anxiety, stress, depression, and PTSD. From a medical perspective, it's been demonstrated to decrease symptoms of the irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, pain, psoriasis, hypertension, helps your sleep. So for me, like most of you, I started meditating because I was stressed, and I didn't want to be stressed, and I didn't want to suffer. And over the years, what I've recognized with this practice is that I truly don't suffer as much, and that there truly is a degree of emotional regulation and stability, that I find that it takes a lot more to trigger me. And when I am triggered, I don't go to the highs that I used to go. And that there is what is called emotional resilience, that there is the capacity to come back to baseline much quicker. And so there's no question that this is of benefit. And to prove that, ask my kids. Because it's very hard to appreciate what you don't do than what you do. And it's the people around you who will say, you're much nicer to be around than you used to be. The other benefit that I derived from my practice personally is, and I didn't intend for this to happen, but there has been no question a much greater degree of empathy and compassion. And I would say that there's a greater degree of empathy and compassion for other, but also for myself. So there's no question that that is a clear part that is derived as a benefit of this practice. And like what you've mentioned, we often talk of happiness. Well, happiness is something that is often very dependent on something external to us. If I only have the right job, the right home, the right partner, the right kids, the right vacation, I will be happy. But you will never ultimately be happy if you are dependent on something that is external to you, because you can never control it. But I have to admit that there are times when I meditate, and that there is just a sense of innate joy of being alive in the moment, independent of what the moment is. I think what we do with our meditation is that we plant the seeds, and the practice does you. And don't come to this practice with an expectation that I will be calmer, I will be happier, I will have less suffering. Simply put the effort in and be open to what is given to you as a gift. Because I think that when you strive for an expectation, that may in some way actually hinder the outcome. But it's also very fascinating to understand, so why does this happen? Why are we calmer? Why do we have more stability? Why do we have more emotional regulation? And brain imaging studies have been very fascinating in meditation. The first thing is the recognition of what is called neuroplasticity, that there is the capacity for neural structure and function to change, that we are not fixed, we are not caught in a rut. So brain imaging studies have demonstrated first that there is a decrease in what is called the amygdala. The amygdala is the center of fear, of emotion, of threat. That decreases. With meditation, there is an increase in the frontal parietal lobe, higher brain functioning, greater executive control, greater self-regulation. There's a greater function of the hippocampus, which is important for memory function. And one last very interesting discovery is that the telomeres are the caps at the end of our chromosomes. And as they keep dividing, they keep shortening as we age. Guess what meditation does? It preserves telomere length. If you meditate, will you live forever? So, how do we set up this practice? Well, the first thing to do is you need to designate one spot that you keep coming back to that is associated with your practice. A place of privacy, a place that your family knows Joe's meditating, give him time, give him space. But there is a connection that occurs with this space. So when do you meditate? Well, it is a formal practice. You can do it at any time of the day. But for me, morning tends to be best. And why is that? Well, how many times have you come home and said, you know what? I'm going to exercise when I get home at the end of the day. And what do? You exercise on the sofa. So by doing it first thing in the morning, you will do it. And second, your mind at that time is probably the most quiet and stable it will be in that day. Because as soon as you step out the front door, you are inundated with so many things that are stimulating. Now, some people like to meditate in the evening, and we've seen that it can be very helpful for people who sleep. So you have to choose what works for you. Another very fascinating thing about your doing the meditation is I have found what is very helpful is to plan your day backwards. Meditation is the priority. I want to meditate 30 minutes every day. So when I went to work, here's what I needed to decide. I needed to get to work at this time. It took me that long to drive to work. I needed to have breakfast. I wanted to meditate. I wanted to shower. What time do I get up? And so that's how I planned my day, and that's how I decided I would get up. And this is the time I needed to get up to do all those things in order to meditate. The other key thing is you need to create a habit and a ritual. And so for me, I knew the pattern. Get up, shower, meditate, eat. And that is how I became ingrained to create this habitual pattern of meditating. How much time do you meditate? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to be realistic. What is achievable? You are not going to start at meditating for 1 hour. And maybe that means started at 5 minutes a day. When you feel comfortable, go to 10, then 15, 20, 25, 30. Interestingly, studies have been done that have demonstrated what might be the minimal amount of meditation you need to do. And 2 separate studies demonstrated 12 minutes and 13 minutes. There was a designated benefit in meditating that length of time. However, there's no question, more is better. And for all of you who meditate, I find like the first 10 minutes, I need just to get my mind to settle down before I can finally start to just focus on the breath. So the longer you do, the better it is. But maybe 12, 13 minutes, is that all you really need to do? I don't know. Frequency is more important than duration. What do I mean by that? Meditating 10 minutes every day is better than meditating 70 minutes once in the week. So frequency, more important than duration. Use a timer. How do you know you're meditated for 10 minutes and you can stop? What are you going to do? Keep looking at your watch? Set an alarm on. An Insight Timer is a great app for helping you to check your meditation time. Well, how many people get pain when they meditate in their body? God, sitting in that one position for that length of time? I don't know about that. I meditate on a cushion. I have never meditated in a lotus or half lotus position. That is an impossibility for my body. I meditate cross-legged, and that's fine. And sometimes if you're meditating on a cushion and it's uncomfortable, sit on the chair. And sometimes if you're uncomfortable sitting on the cushion or the chair, stand up. Pain is not unexpected. We are not warriors that have to grin and bear pain in our bodies when we meditate. It's okay to move, but perhaps do it slowly and with awareness. Well, I have to admit, I have done a lot of vertical sleeping in the guise of meditation. I start to meditate, and before I know it, I'm sleeping. So, how do you deal with drowsiness? Well, open your eyes. If your eyes are closed, open your eyes. Let in more stimulation. Stand. Don't sit, because when you stand, you know what? Your body isn't going to let you fall over. When you're sitting, it's easier to fall over, right? Straighten your spine. When there is a lot of stillness and uprightness in your body, that energy that you use to create that helps to keep you awake. Well, what about the converse? Oh my God, my mind is racing, it's agitated. I'll never slow down. How am I going to do this meditation? Well, if your eyes are open, how about closing them? Again, come back to that stillness and the straightness of your spine as a way of creating some stillness in your body. Because you see, a still body is very important for a still mind. And sometimes focusing intentionally on the breath can be very helpful. And trying to create a prolonged exhalation, because the exhalation is the parasympathetic arm of the autonomic nervous system that is for relaxation. let's be serious. Focusing on the breath is about as exciting as watching paint dry. Do you get bored when you meditate? Absolutely. But here's the key. If we're doing a breath meditation, as we said, when you focus on the breath, it's one object, but it is constantly changing. And so what you need to do is to bring an interest, a curiosity to each breath, to see how it is different than the last breath. And the other thing you can do is that if you are doing a focused awareness meditation, one object, and you're bored or getting sleepy, then by switching to open monitoring, where you simply rest in the awareness to whatever arises, is a way of creating some interest and energy. So, what we're going to do now is I am going to lead you through a guided meditation. And in this guided meditation, I'm going to try to outline for you some of the techniques of practice that may help with your practice. So, the first thing that I do when I meditate is I set the intention. I quietly say to myself or internally, what am I planning to do here? May I have applied and sustained awareness of the present moment. May I have sustained awareness of my breath. May I have mindfulness in this moment. So whatever you are planning to do within this meditation, state that as the intention for what you plan to do. There are 4 positions you can meditate in: lying down, standing, sitting, and walking. We recognize that the position of preference is sitting. That there is a problem in trying to do meditation in bed, lying down. Because what do we associate when we're lying down or in bed? Sleeping. That's true. But anyway, we'll go beyond that. We'll say sleep. Now, there are some people who need to meditate lying flat. Because of physical issues, they need to lie flat. But as a rule, sitting is probably the best position that you can use. The next thing is posture, and in particular, the spine. Because as I said before, a still body leads to a still mind. That when you are in your body, there is only one place you can be. Right here, right now, in the present moment. So, when we start the meditation, and we're all in a chair, so we'll do it as a chair, feet are flat on the floor. We want to sit more towards the front of the chair, and we don't want to have our backs leaning against the back of the chair. We don't want to be supported by the chair, because when you have to sit up by yourself, that is creating the need for more energy that helps to activate your process. The buttocks, the hips should be higher than the knees. And if you need to use a cushion to do that, that's perfectly fine. And I have a cushion at home that I put under my buttocks to get my hips higher than the knees. And some people may actually need to put cushions under their feet. But that's the key. Hips higher than the knees. The spine is upright. It's upright, but not uptight or stiff. It's as if you are being lifted from the top of your head upwards, and that there is a slight rolling in of your lower spine, a a bit of concavity. Because if you are sitting with your spine like this in a slouched crouch position, that's not very effective. And what you want to do is you want to be able to lift, and rolling your lower spine in a little bit helps for that lift. Our shoulders are back, our chest is out, our chin is drawn back a little bit. Our hands can rest on our thighs, palms down. Or they can rest on our lap, right hand, palm up, left hand, palm up above the right hand, with the thumbs touching. What about the eyes? Well, the eyes can either be open with a soft gaze several feet in front of you. I prefer meditating with my eyes closed because it helps to decrease that external visual stimulation. So I would invite you to assume that posture, an upright spine lifted to the air, and your eyes closed. We're now going to bring our awareness to our body. Because as I said, what we're trying to do is to bring ourselves into the present moment. A still body leads to a still mind. And so it can be very helpful initially to do a quick body scan. And a body scan is awareness of your body from the soles of your feet to the top of your head in an ascending fashion. So you bring awareness to the soles of your feet. Then you go to your lower legs, upper legs, pelvis, belly, abdomen, hands, lower arms, upper arms, shoulders, and head. And as you do that scan, if you notice that there is any place of tension, pause, bring awareness, try and relax, try and breathe into that space of tension. Because you want to be able to come to your meditation with a body that is relaxed. And after doing that scan, it may then be helpful to simply rest in the stability and groundedness of your body. And one can either choose the sensations of the feet as they touch the floor, or the contacts of the buttocks on the chair, and just feel that sense of stability, that support, that groundedness. So what we're doing is we're doing a breath awareness, focused breath meditation. So where do we choose the spot to feel the breath? It can be the tip of the nostrils, the chest, the abdomen, the whole body. I would suggest that you try the nostrils, because the nostril region is a very focal spot and a very sensitive spot. And the other value of choosing the nostrils is it is critical that when we do this practice, we want to breathe in through our nose, not our mouth. And so if we are bringing awareness deliberately to the nostrils, it is a way of helping to support the practice of breathing in through the nose. One can breathe out through the nose or the mouth. I would invite you to take 3 intentional deep breaths. Because what you want to do is, can you identify where is the spot in that nasal region where you tend to feel the breath? And the critical aspect is what you want to do is to feel the physical sensation of the movement of the breath at the tip of the nostril. That is all we're doing. We're bringing awareness to a single object that is constantly changing. That when you bring awareness to the breath, what do you notice? Is every breath the same, or does it change? Is the breath cool or warm? Moist or dry? Short or long? Regular or irregular? Critical point. Awareness of the physical sensations of the movement of the breath at the tip of the nostrils. And something else that can be very helpful is to recognize that the breath is not one complete cycle. That it may be easier to follow the breath in segments than as one complete breath from the beginning of inhalation to the end of exhalation. So observe, bring your awareness to the breath. And when you breathe in, what follows? A pause. And what follows the pause? Exhalation. And what follows the exhalation? Another pause. So it's very interesting that it can be very helpful to sustain awareness by looking at the breath through its segments rather than as one complete cycle. There are two ways to address the segments. One, as an in-breath, beginning of inhalation to the end of the short pause. Out-breath, exhalation to the end of the longer pause. Try that. The other way to do it is to follow each individual segment. So you follow the breath from the beginning of inhalation to the end of inhalation, to the beginning and the end of the pause, to the beginning and the end of the exhalation, and to the beginning and the ending of the pause. So we've moved from the breath as one complete cycle to two segments, or following the breath as four segments. Experiment, see what you find. But the other critical aspect as well is, inevitably our minds will wander. And why is that? Because when you come to the end of the exhalation and you rest in that longer pause, we see stillness and silence and spaciousness as nothingness. Nothing to grab onto, nothing to hold onto. That's a mistake, because there is truly something wonderful about the silence and the stillness and the spaciousness at the end of exhalation. And intentionally directing your awareness to that space may also help to sustain the continuity of awareness. But bear in mind, we are not trying to manipulate or control the breath. We are simply trying to observe the breath. And so this is a key part of the practice, that we are resting in the spontaneous breathing of the breath. We are being breathed by our breath, not manipulating it. And there are two things that can be of value to support our practice. One can say in quietly to oneself with the in-breath, and out as one breathes out with the out-breath. And the other thing is to count. 1 with the inhalation and the exhalation. The next breath, 2 with the inhalation and the exhalation, until you get to 10, and then you start again. So what you're doing is you're adding modalities to support sustainability of meditation. So I would invite you in this moment now to sit upright, your spine lifted, eyes closed, and bringing your awareness to the physical sensations of the movement of the breath at the tip of the nostril. And choose for yourself what works best. How will you follow this in terms of what segments will you follow? So we're going to bring the meditation to an end now. And I quickly want to address the other critical aspect of what happens during meditation. If only we could have sustained awareness on our breath through whatever length of time we choose. What inevitably happens? Can you tell me? When you focus on your breath, what's going to happen? Yeah, where does your mind go to? Exactly. It is totally unrealistic to expect that you will have sustained awareness of your breath. They say we have 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And why is it that when I meditate, all of those 60,000 thoughts happen during my meditation? The critical aspect is to recognize that drifting off the breath, mind wandering, switching of your focus of attention is natural, is normal, and that is not a failure of meditation. It is to be expected that you will drift. The critical aspect is not that you drift. The critical aspect is that you recognize that you have drifted. That's what's important. So people often say, well, focus on your breath, notice when you drift, and then refocus. Bring your awareness back to your breath. If only it was that simple. Is that easy to bring your mind back when your mind is saying to you, are you kidding me? Did you do that? This is horrible. What am I going to do tomorrow? Did I do that yesterday? It's not so simple to let go of the thinking mind and come back to your breath. And why is that? Because we are that sense of self. We are the self that is being criticized. We are the self that is criticizing. And we are the sense of self that is aware that we are criticizing our sense of self. We're hooped. We're hooped. But it's not that easy to let go of the sense of self. And so even though we start our meditation off as this dedicated practice to be aware of the breath, that isn't what's going to happen only. And what is going to happen is that we are going to have to contend with something else coming along. That we are going to have to contend with what? The practice of mindfulness. Because mindfulness includes two key components. Awareness. Not only awareness, but what we call meta-awareness. To know what you know. To know that you are aware of the breath. And to know that you have drifted off the breath. But the other critical aspect of mindfulness is insight. It's understanding how you create your sense of self and how you are in relationship with the present moment. Meditation is not about a still mind, a silent mind, a mind without thoughts. There are only two ways that that can happen. Death and coma. And that's not what we're here tonight to try and teach you. But what we are trying to understand is that the sense of self that we construct is a temporary, ephemeral, conditioned construct. That this is all about process, how the self gets created, not that it is a true entity. It's not that it doesn't exist, but in reality, it's not real. And every single one of us in this room has experienced some wounding, most likely inner child wounding. And that is the basis for creating a sense of self, because we want to all feel safe, loved, and worthy. And my need to be perfect was simple. It was the way I could get love when I was young. That's not so hard to be perfect, is it? And when you're not perfect, what do? Well, then you just apologize and appease, and that's what you do. So the essence of the mindfulness, and it is such a big topic that I'm not going to go into it all, but just to be aware of the fact that it is meta-awareness and how one is in relationship in the present moment. So when you are in your meditation and your mind wanders, realize that that is normal. And the simple thing you can do to start with is to simply label what is happening. Now thinking, now judging, now planning. Because in order to label what is happening, you've had to step out of it in order to observe it. And the other characteristic thing you can do is embody what is happening. Get out of your mind, get into your body, and feel it as a way of holding it. So, in summary, meditation in its reality is a formal practice of mindfulness. Because although you will try and have a practice of sustained awareness, inevitably your mind will wander, and you have to be in relationship with that. Meditation is a wonderful way to support the practice of mindfulness that you will bring into the day. And so it's very helpful in that sense. And that there is something really amazing about the capacity to have concentration, that ability to lead to emotional regulation, calmness, contentment, not happiness, that arises spontaneously. But the critical thing is that when people think of a contemplative practice, what comes to mind is meditation, just somebody sitting in this pose. The reality is that it is mindfulness, moment to moment, all day long. It is truly where you want to be. That the meditation is a complementary, supportive practice that enables mindfulness that you do throughout the day. That if you can do both, that's great. In all honesty, if there was a choice, I would think mindfulness, moment to moment throughout the day, is probably more beneficial than meditation. I look at meditation as mindfulness with training wheels, because you have put yourself in a position where you can just focus on what is occurring without distractions, without being in the outside world and someone calling you and on your email and on your phone, but having the capacity to have a dedicated practice. So, with that, thank you for your patience, and let us open this up to any questions that you might like to entertain. Ali, you want to take care of that?
So when we talk about mindfulness, it brings me to the mind. So I get the understanding that we need to start thinking. And that's not why I want to meditate. I want to meditate so I can think. So it almost seems like mindfulness is off the target. It's, falling off the road, taking the wrong turn or something like that. So I know that term is used a lot. And the mindfulness, to me, appears that we want to connect with ourselves, the true self. But my idea of meditation is just to be. Cut all ties, cut all connections, just be in the moment and be who I am. As soon as I start thinking about mindfulness and have to pay attention to what I'm thinking and that type of thinking, so then I have the idea of past and present and future. It just kind of throws me off the wagon, throws me off the road, going in the wrong direction, missing the boat.
Can you summarize that for us?
That's, you made a lot of excellent points there. So I think what you're asking is when we talk about mindfulness, there is a component of mindfulness that has some thinking to it. And how do we practice mindfulness without necessarily getting into a proliferation of thinking around that? Does that kind of summarize what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So this is really a very, very important question. And this is a whole talk into itself, obviously. You have to understand, where did mindfulness come from? Mindfulness came from a fellow named Rhys Davids in 1895 in colonized Burma. The Brits came in. What did they do? They got rid of the royalty. What did the Buddhists do? Oh my God. We don't have any royalty anymore to support us. So there are Buddhist monks like Mahasi Sayadaw who then changed what mindfulness and meditation was about. Very interesting. Historically, mindfulness was the privy of the monks. The monks offered the teaching. Did the lay people meditate? Absolutely not. So the Burmese monks recognized that in order to sustain Buddhism, we needed to have the buy-in of the lay public. So they then started to do two key changes. They began to do meditation retreats. Interesting. Lay people began to meditate. And what did they do? Historically, you never did vipassana or insight until you had accomplished very deep jhanas, concentration states, that you needed to have a concentrated mind in order to have insight. And what did they start with? No, you don't need to do that. Temporary concentration is all that is needed for insight. Mindfulness comes from the Pali word, and it means sati, which means memory, to remember. But it doesn't mean remember things that have happened in the past. It means to keep in mind what is on your mind in the present moment. To have sustained awareness, to be able to understand not just what it is, but is it skillful? And can I remember to bring the Buddhist teachings? In 1979, Jon Kabat-Zinn, you may have heard his name, created a program called MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. It was a program to deal with chronic pain in patients in the United States. And he defined mindfulness as awareness of the present moment on purpose in a particular way, non-judgmentally. Okay? So our current understanding of mindfulness has been shaped not from the time of the Buddha 2,600 years ago, but from 1979 with Jon Kabat-Zinn. And just to clarify his definition, the historic definition of mindfulness had a very strong ethical component to it. You could not be mindful without ethical behavior. Is that part of our present day definition? Non-judgmental. That came from his Korean Zen Buddhist practice of non-duality. Neither yes nor no, subject object. Historically, mindfulness was about, was what present skillful or not? Whether you want to call it judgmental or not, it certainly was an element of discernment. So I don't see mindfulness as just the mind. I like to think of mindfulness as wholefulness, including our mind and our body. When I hear the word non-judgmental, what comes to mind is a sense of restraint. I am inhibiting myself from judging the present moment. And I don't think that that is only what mindfulness is about. I think what mindfulness, and this has been written, is about the aspect of embracing, engaging, opening, allowing, accepting, experiencing what is present without resistance. This is what mindfulness is about. It is not freedom from pain and suffering. It is the freedom to be with pain and suffering. That mindfulness is about a skillful relationship. It's not what is present, it's how you are with it. Can you accept it? Can you see how you have created it based on what it means about who you believe you are and your sense of self?
Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but maybe I want something else, or something different from meditation. I want to be connected with the spirit, with that non-physical part of me, which I think will let me experience connection with the Creator.
Okay.
I want that experience.
So let me just be clear that there are many understandings of mindfulness. And if that is your understanding and your definition of what you are looking for, that is perfectly fine. Absolutely. But understand mindfulness from a current Buddhist perspective is the reality that this is not about connection with a creator. When the Buddha was asked, was he a god? He said, I'm a man that is awake. There is no divinity here. And just one last comment about that the ultimate path in mindfulness is the capacity to transcend the conditioned nature of self. That is truly what it is all about. What do you enter? Some divine space? Some godlike space? No. You enter into a space of mindful presence and awareness that has innate compassion and wisdom. That is human. Thanks for your question. Do we have any other questions that reflect meditation and its practice or mindfulness?
Dr. Witt, first off, I have to comment that the tips of my nostrils didn't feel nada. And secondly, the question is, were we doing a concentration
Yes.
meditation?
Yes.
Or there are two broad types, concentration and
Vipassana. Insight.
insight.
Yeah.
Just explain that a little bit more.
Sure. So we have concentration,
Yeah,
where we have focused awareness of one object,
yeah.
and open monitoring, where you rest in the awareness of whatever arises. Vipassana,
In the external environment,
your pardon?
your awareness of what's going on in the external environment.
Well, whatever your senses tell you. We only perceive the world through what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think. So it's that capacity to either say, I'm going to choose the breath, or the capacity to say, I'm just going to rest in knowing and awareness. What's next? What's next? When you meditate, you have the capacity to see the true nature of reality. Observe your sense of self that you create in your story and follow it. What happens to that story that you create about who you are? Ever followed the sense of self in your mind? Well, you know what happens to it? Do you keep the same story all day long? Or do you keep creating new stories and thoughts moment to moment? And so that sense of self that is there in that moment extinguishes, comes to an end. Where does it go? It's supposed to be enduring. It's supposed to be permanent. You can observe that in your meditation practice. Watch the sense of self. Ask, is the sense of self that's present now the same sense of self that was present before? New sense of self. Is the new sense of self the same sense of self that was present before? In terms of the nostrils, what I would suggest is, if it doesn't work for you, then go to your chest, then go to your abdomen, then go to your body. But whatever works for you. But as a rule, if it works at the tip of your nostrils, great. If it doesn't, choose whatever part that you appreciate, that you can connect with.
But not regulating.
The critical aspect about this is that ideally one wants to be breathed by what is going on. You're allowing for the spontaneous movement of the breath. Any other questions?
Please elaborate a little bit about this sense of self. Like,
Oh,
what, I know it's huge, but just from a meditation perspective, when you say observe the sense of self,
yes.
what does that really mean in terms of either concentration or visualization or anything? Like, what do you mean when you say observe the sense of self?
Sure. So this is a small topic, just like mindfulness. And I will give you a brief understanding because we're almost done. The Buddha said, amazing, 2,600 years ago. And for someone to have this insight is unbelievable. Anything we attach to is I, me, or mine will lead to suffering. The 3 marks of existence. The third one is what is called anatta, not self. That doesn't mean that there isn't a self, but it means that that's not who we are. The Buddhist would talk about causes and conditions coming together moment to moment to create a sense of self. The Buddhist did not have this idea of developmental psychology that we understand in our current Western psychology. And as I said, the self is a process. It is not a fixed entity. It gets created moment to moment. I have a belief system about who I am. This has been created since I was 4 years old. That's when we create the sense of self. I believe I need to act in this way moment to moment to feel safe, loved, and worthy. Because as a child, I was powerless. I needed these tall humans to take care of me. If they were upset, I caused it. That's the belief system that we have. That the sense of self that we construct is based on a feeling of inadequacy and being flawed. And so if we can see that we are creating this sense of self in the moment to feel that we are safe, loved, and worthy, the problem is that we use childhood defensive strategies that have outlived their past due date. And so ultimately, if we have the capacity to rest not being the sense of self, but resting in awareness that recognizes that there is a sense of self, that is freedom. Because every moment is not based on me acting in a certain way in order to maintain my safety, but it is simply being able to be present for what is in this moment, independent of the misinterpretation of what I believe it is. Okay.
Okay, that was great.
So I'm just going to
That's
summarize.
a big topic.
I'm just going to quickly summarize. Meditation, very important. It is a dedicated practice of mindfulness. It involves both meta-awareness and insight. That it is the training wheels of mindfulness. That it allows us to bring what we learn in meditation into our day-to-day living in the practice of mindfulness. That if you can do meditation on a daily, consistent basis, it will benefit you. It will benefit your capacity to practice mindfulness. But it will also do those other beautiful, wonderful, juicy things of emotional stability, joy, contentment. But if you have a choice, mindfulness, moment to moment.
So if there was one thing that I could take away from today, what would you recommend I do?
I would
An
recommend,
actionable thing to do.
yeah, create a daily meditation practice, but recognize it is just supporting the ability to be present, moment to moment with mindfulness. That is the crux of freedom.